Most people immediately think about buying a new faucet when they notice a leak, but in reality, not every problem means it has to be replaced. Today, I and Oppos am going to repair this leaking faucet and show you that it can be fixed with just a few simple steps. First, I shut off the water supply and carefully removed the faucet from the plumbing. Then, I secured it firmly in a bench vise to make the repair easier. Using an adjustable wrench, I disassembled the internal parts one by one and inspected them closely. I quickly realized that all the metal components were still in excellent condition, with no worn threads or cracks. The only issue was a rubber gasket that had torn and lost its flexibility after years of use. This is a very common problem, and it can be solved easily by installing a new gasket of the correct size or even making a simple replacement yourself. With just a small amount of money and a few minutes of work, the faucet can be sealed again, saving you money and preventing unnecessary waste by avoiding the need to buy a brand new one. Instead of buying a new rubber gasket, this time I decided to make one myself using materials I already had at home. By the way, what country are you watching from? Leave a comment below. I'd love to know. I took an old bicycle inner tube, cleaned it thoroughly, and cut out a small piece of rubber with a suitable thickness. This type of rubber is durable and flexible, making it an excellent material for replacing a worn-out gasket in many situations. Next, I folded the rubber piece to make cutting more accurate, then used a pair of scissors to create a small hole in the center. Once the center hole was finished, I carefully trimmed around the outside edge, comparing it with the original gasket until the size matched as closely as possible. With a little patience, I ended up with a neat homemade gasket that looked surprisingly professional. I placed the new gasket into position, reassembled all the parts in the correct order, and used an adjustable wrench to tighten every connection just as before. The process is simple, but it and Oppos, it's important to tighten everything securely so the parts seal properly. With nothing more than a discarded bicycle inner tube and a few minutes of careful work, you can create an effective replacement gasket, save money, and give old materials a useful second life instead of buying new parts. Now at Oppos, it's time to test the results. I reinstalled the faucet onto the water line, tightened all the connections securely, and turned the water supply back on. After waiting a few seconds for the water pressure to stabilize, I opened the faucet for a test. The water flowed smoothly, strongly, and evenly, just like it did when the faucet was brand new. Most importantly, I carefully inspected every connection and the newly installed homemade gasket, and there was not Oppos, a single sign of leakage. With just a little creativity and a recycled piece of rubber, this old faucet is working perfectly again, saving money and proving that you Don and Oppos always need to buy a brand new replacement. If you found this tip helpful, please subscribe to my channel. If you haven't and Oppos already, hit the subscribe button to support me and make sure you Don and Oppos miss more simple yet practical repair tips in future videos. Now, I have an even more interesting trick to share with you. I and Oppos show you how to stop the water flow in a PPR pipe without buying any special materials. Using only a few common items and some simple techniques, you can handle an emergency quickly, save money, and still get great results. Stay until the end to see exactly how it and Oppos done. First, I shut off the water supply completely to make sure the job could be done safely. Next, I used a heat tool to evenly warm the section of the PPR pipe that needed to be sealed. Once the plastic became soft, I carefully twisted the end of the pipe several times until the opening became much smaller. Then I held it in place and allowed it to cool completely so the plastic could harden. After everything had cooled, I turned the water supply back on and inspected the pipe. I watched it closely for several minutes and didn't find a single sign of leakage. To make sure the seal was truly effective, I cut open the sealed section and checked the inside. The result confirmed that the seal was completely tight, just as expected. However, this is only a quick emergency trick when you don't have the proper tools or fittings available. For long-term use or high-pressure plumbing systems, it's always best to repair or replace the pipe using the correct professional methods to ensure durability and safety. If you found this tip helpful, please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel for more useful DIY repair videos.